Hello, I'm NeverLag, and this is every game I played in March. Let's do it. If you follow the channel, you'll know that for me, March started with the Steam Next Fest, in which I played just an unreal amount of demos. And it was fun. It was a blast. If you're interested in any of that, feel free to check out the videos I did specifically for those. But with nearly 50 demos in the rear view, it was now finally time to buckle down and beat Death Stranding 2. If you have a game that you know you're going to love, but for whatever reason you missed the launch window, you missed the hype, and now it just sits in your backlog as this ominous, daunting presence that feels too overwhelming to start, really, then this is your sign. Just go start the game, because that was Death Stranding 2 for me. And I finally started it back in February. It's not that it was even finally the right time or anything like that. I just started it. I forced myself to start it and let myself catch up. And let me tell you, that's the answer. That's probably almost always the answer, because I love this game. Now, whether you love Death Stranding and you love its bizarre world and its unique gameplay, or you hate it and you think it's a self-indulgent walking simulator, you're both right. You're both right, but it's still amazing. And I loved the first game. Everything here in the sequel, whether it's the visuals, the gameplay, or the story, is just that much better. For starters, this is one of the best looking games ever made. Just full stop. The line between in-engine gameplay and photorealism is as thin as I've ever seen it. And even though there still are some issues with the Decima engine, particularly the way it renders foliage at times, it's time that we put some respect on Decima's name, because at this point, it's put out two of the best looking games ever made. Not just on the PS5, but ever made, with Death Stranding 2 and Horizon Forbidden West. So yeah, shout out Decima. I was routinely blown away while playing this game at how incredible it looks. And I have so many screenshots and so many videos, and it really just shows what this generation is capable of and puts the rest of the industry to shame when it comes to the unoptimized state that most games release in these days. Branching off from visuals, this game has some of the most insane set pieces and visual art design when it comes to the world, the bosses, the cutscenes. Whether it's a giant roaming BT you find out in the wild or a specific story boss, this game just constantly presents you with unreal visual spectacles that they're incredible. And later in the game, you even get the ability to capture a weakened BT, kind of like it's Pokemon all of a sudden. Don't tell Nintendo, though. But you can store it for future use. And at the time, I was like, this is kind of a weird mechanic to throw in this late in the game. I don't know about this. And what results is later you unleash this BT that you caught to help you fight another giant BT. And it creates what can only be described as a Death Stranding Tar Kaiju mega battle. And it's visuals are just 11 out of 10 in this game. When it comes to the gameplay, if you're here for Death Stranding, if you liked the first game, everything is just kind of better here in the sequel, which is what you would want. A lot of the systems feel more refined and polished, and like there's some good quality of life additions for making deliveries, managing your inventory, gathering various resources. In this game, they've introduced mines, which you can find throughout the map. And you can bring these mines online, and then you can basically convert your chiral crystals, which you get from exploring the world or fighting and destroying BTs. You can now convert those to operate the mine and get other resources that you need, like resin or metals or things like that, chemicals, to be able to go out and put up more structures or build the roads. And it's just a nice gameplay loop, a new feature that was added here. These mines also have automated delivery tracks, basically, that you can connect, the mine to like a major city. And not only can you then send large quantities of delivery materials from one location to the other, but it also has a zipline attached to it. So it basically counts as an extra infrastructure for your zipline network that doesn't count towards your chiral bandwidth, which is a whole bunch of words that I just used that will make sense to nobody unless you've played this game. But yeah, if you're here for it, the gameplay is just better in this game. Another example of an improvement in this game over the first is that your zip lines now can have curvature added to their pathing, which is huge. Let me tell you, that is huge, because in the first game you had to have a straight line connecting your zip lines, and it was very tricky at times to find the exact right place to put it. But now you can have your zip line go over a mountain or curve to the left or curve to the right, and that just is such a nice quality of life feature that goes a long way in this game. They've added all kinds of combat tools and weapons. Just the arsenal that you have at your disposal in this game is honestly a little bit excessive. I didn't even make use of all of it. I kind of want to go back in and mess around because you can tell they really put a lot into making this just kind of a wacky, wild sandbox that obviously harkens back to the Metal Gear days, and just a lot of fun stuff that you can use when you're taking on different camps of enemies or BTs and things like that. They really have improved the combat here in the sequel and made it easier and more fun to engage with. Even though it's still not the focus of the gameplay, it's definitely an improvement. Overall, I would just say that it feels like because Death Stranding had already set the foundation of what this game is and what it plays like, Death Stranding 2 was free to focus on how to make 1,000 little improvements that all add up and just improve quality of life and make this feel like the definitive Death Stranding experience. And there are still a lot of controls, so keep that in mind. Like, to learn this it is a learning curve. There is a skill ceiling to it. It can feel clunky at first, and especially in combat. But once you hit that skill ceiling, once you learn how to play this game, it's very rewarding. And also there's a coffin that you can use as a surfboard. So when it comes to gameplay, I feel like that's kind of a mic drop. Lastly, I have to touch on the story because the story is what really surprised me in Death Stranding 2. In the first game, I mostly loved it for the gameplay. There were some cool characters, some cool character moments, but for the most part, the story felt so off the rails and nonsensical to me that, to be honest, not much of it stuck. But here in Death Stranding 2, the story focuses on Lou. Kind of the central plot is who is Lou, what makes Lou special. And that mystery was it was more tangible to me, and maybe it was just better presented, but I was way more invested than I was with the first game. And also, I have to say that this game brought a lot of the narrative elements and questions from the first game to satisfying conclusions. There were payoffs for these characters. They really delivered on the story of this current duology in a way that I didn't think was possible with how little I felt or connected or remembered from the first game. But I will say I was actually pretty surprised at how hype it felt to meet back up with some of the returning characters. There were some real getting the band back together moments that I clicked with and I was really into. And then on top of that, there are many new core characters that are added here in the sequel, and each and every one of them are so good. They are just fantastic characters that really bring a lot to this story. And the cutscenes. The cutscenes in this game can go so hard. It's crazy, man. I mean, some of these they rival peak Marvel with just how good they are. So the story itself, it can still be a little out there in moments. It feels like right when I decide I'm all in, Kojima pushes the boundary of just how weird he can make something. But for the most part, I really was all in on this story. And I didn't think that it would be able to resolve into something comprehensible, but it genuinely did. And it even had some real killer payoffs for the characters in the end. So yeah, I love Death Stranding 2, and it's kind of impossible to cram all of my thoughts about this game into 10 minutes or so. It's just not possible. But the one thing that I will say is that after nearly 100 hours of playing this game, rolling credits, I continued to keep playing it. And I hopped in one night, to work on the Platinum Trophy. And as the game booted up and the various sounds of the world and the sound cues of the terminal played, and Sam stood there with his pack all ready to go, it just hit me that against all odds, Death Stranding 2 has officially become a comfort game for me. It's a game that I just love being in. I love the sounds of it. I love the gameplay. I love neurotically, perfectly setting up my zipline routes for maximum bandwidth efficiency. Just getting from point A to point B. It's a game that at this point I will definitely want to come back to, almost in a similar way to the way I feel about Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that's really the biggest compliment I can give any video game. But with all of that said, March continues, time stops for no man, and it was going to be one heck of a month because we were moving. And that's just never fun. And I kind of thought, you know what, maybe Death Stranding 2 is the only game I will get to in March. And I was wrong, starting with Pokopia. I feel like Pokopia had one of the biggest cultural zeitgeist moments that we've seen since Animal Crossing, and maybe one of the biggest ones that we can see in a post-pandemic situation. But I am not an Animal Crossing type of guy. I did not play that game. I found it to be incredibly boring and disrespectful to my time. And so, but I was curious about this because I do like survival games, especially ones that have extensive base building and customization like Subnautica or Grounded. And then on top of that, I'm just a 90s kid, so the nostalgia for Charmander and Squirtle and Bulbasaur, they can do a lot of heavy lifting. And I figured if any cozy type game was going to click for me, maybe it's this one. At this point, I can't say for sure. I'm still in the middle of the game, so I'll save my final thoughts for when I roll credits. But currently, I've done extensive work in 3 different zones, restoring the Poké Center in 2 out of 3 of them. And what I will say is that this game was a struggle for me to get into. Now, part of that may have been that I was really deep into Death Stranding 2 even after rolling credits, and I was trying to break away from that game to move on to some other things. But part of it also is just the nature of these games. These cozy games are a little bit slower, a little bit hold your hand, whether they're designed for younger kids or whatever it is. It was a slow start for sure. But having pushed through the initial slow start and getting to grips with what the game is and what it's actually like to play, I will say I'm relatively impressed by it. The game feels well made from top to bottom. The different abilities and systems that you unlock as you continue through the campaign feel very well thought out and cohesive. And every time I unlock a new system like cooking or each zone kind of has its main quest where you're doing something specific. One has you running electrical lines to restore power. And each time I'm impressed at how well these different systems are just thought out, how intuitive the mechanics feel. And then when it comes to the Pokemon, I want to find them, not just because I want to catch them all, but because they all have very specific skills that I need that can help me around these bases, whether that's turning clay into bricks or wood into lumber or being able to help me move heavy things or help me build. And there's proper incentive to want to find all of these Pokemon that can help me restore the community, and it just ends up being a really well-made gameplay loop. One thing that surprises me a little bit about Pokopia is that it feels less like a free-form survival exploration game and more like I'm putting a puzzle back together. Like someone took the puzzle pieces and threw them all over the place, and now I'm coming into the zone, finding the Pokemon, and putting all the puzzle pieces back where they go. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. At first, I was a little frustrated at how rigid and formulaic it felt, but there is a sense of satisfaction that comes from putting a puzzle back together, cleaning up the streets like it's Power Wash Simulator, and just putting everything back where it goes. One thing I have noticed as I've gotten closer to what I assume is the mid-game is that I'm noticing the different zones are maybe feeling a bit too big, actually, which is a surprising complaint, I guess, but it's causing me to not want to spend too much time perfecting any one area and making it my own and making it perfect, and rather just focus on the quest lines, the various quests you get from the Pokemon that progress the campaign. And maybe that's by design. I don't know. We'll see once I get to the end and I'm able to roll credits if I feel compelled to truly make any of these areas my own and live in them a little bit more. But yeah, either way, I'm impressed with the game. The quality of it seems to be really high. And even though it ultimately still may not be a genre for me, I'm having fun with it. And I do intend to roll credits. And when I do, I will update you all with my final thoughts. From there, I got stuck into Ghost of Yōtei Legends. I liked but didn't love Ghost of Yōtei from last year, but I really did like the Tsushima Legends mode that released way back when. So I was looking forward to this, getting into this mode, playing some co-op with my brother. And for starters, I just have to say, how freaking cool is it that in 2026, with the industry and Sony falling apart at the seams, studios like Bluepoint getting shut down, the live service disaster in the rearview mirror, that Sucker Punch is still just, they put out another completely free mode with this Legends DLC. That's just awesome, and you love to see it. I'm also happy to report that Ghost of Yōtei Legends picks up right where Tsushima Legends left off, and it's honestly shocking how well the Ghost formula transitions from single player to co-op. I won't go so far as to say that it's better, but strictly when it comes to gameplay, I think I might actually prefer it. And it kind of has that Night Rain effect where I just didn't expect it to work as well as it does and continues to here. As far as the structure of Legends goes, it's very similar to something like original Destiny, where you have several different classes you can choose from. You can switch back and forth at any time, but they all level up independently. You have the Samurai, the Shinobi, the Archer, and the Mercenary, and they all have different strengths, different weapons they have access to, and different abilities. And so as you level them up, as you increase their power level with new gear, the class gets stronger and you get access to those new abilities. At launch, there are a few different modes you can play, but the highlight is the campaign, which has 4 acts, and each act consists of 4 total missions, 3 of which are standard, and then the 4th one is basically a culmination. It's an incursion where you go in and fight one of these mythical versions of the Yōtei 6 in a big boss battle. Fair warning, by the way, these incursions, the final 4th mission of each act, are meant to be played with 4 people. And the game does tell you this, but I was under the impression that the entire campaign was meant to be played just in co-op with 2 people. And so we spent a good amount of time, an entire night really, beating our faces against the wall, trying to beat the second boss, and just cursing it up and down, saying it was the worst designed boss ever. And then we found out it was meant to be played with 4 people, and it got a lot better after that. Another thing to note is that each one of these acts have their own specific co-op mechanics that they introduce that go a long way to making each mission feel unique and diverse. And we had a lot of fun with them. Each one was just as interesting as the one before it. An example is having to balance different elemental affinities on your weapons with your co-op partner and make sure that you swap in and out and have the right ones to fight whatever you're fighting, to something as simple as being able to teleport across the map and assassinate someone as you fall from the sky. Like just some really fun mechanics that they introduce that kind of go off the walls and really separate this from the base game. But that's the general premise. My brother and I had a blast going through this. The boss fights were just a ton of fun jumping in with, especially 4 total people, and just the chaos of fighting these larger than life versions of the Yōtei 6, and the hook of, leveling up your character, getting that XP, getting that new gear, getting that new ability to try out on the next run. It's just all done so well here, and it really makes me nostalgic for the early days of Destiny, before Destiny 2, before the Eververse, where you just would get an expansion and a raid, and you would pay for it, you would play it, and then you would put it down for a little while. And I wish Destiny had continued doing that, and I think it works surprisingly well here with the Ghost franchise. I kind of would love to see them do that, to be honest. I would happily pay for a little expansion every year to hop back in, do a new campaign, do some story missions, gear up, and have a brand new raid. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. The last thing I absolutely have to shout out is the hub space. I don't recall if there was one in Tsushima Legends, but this one here in Yōtei is just, it's perfect. Sucker Punch knew exactly what we wanted, and they just crushed it with this space. It's where you chill between missions. It's where you can bring a buddy in and kind of prep for your next campaign or whatever. And they brought the two best parts of Yōtei into this little clubhouse where you chill. They brought the bamboo strikes, complete with daily changing challenges, and even a little leaderboard where you can kind of see who got the farthest or got the best time. And then they also brought in Zeni Hajiki. Who knows if I'm saying that correctly, but it's the coin flicking game from the base game. And let me tell you, this game is way more interesting to play with another actual human. We have had several games that have gone on for like 10 minutes and required actual strategy and got kind of intense. There was some real intense competition going on here. So we loved it. We would start out every one of our sessions with some bamboo strike warm-up and followed with best 2 out of 3 for Zeni Hajiki. And it's just awesome. It was just fun to hang out in this space. And it just really brought, it was kind of like the cherry on top, but honestly, I don't even know if that does it justice, because it might have been my favorite part of this entire mode.
That might have been that might have been the most legendary flick that ever happened.
So yeah, shout out to Sucker Punch for putting out this free update that is just really cool, really high quality. We had a ton of fun with it. I think the raid comes out sometime in April. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to this, gear up a little bit more, and actually try out the raid, because that's something I missed back in Tsushima Legends, and I would definitely like to experience it this time around. Another game I checked out in March is Absolum. This is a side-scrolling beat-em-up roguelite from last year that has gotten really good support through several updates and has quite a bit of positive sentiment surrounding it. It's your basic roguelite setup where you select from a small roster of heroes that have different abilities. You set out on a run that has branching paths, and you get various upgrades, and you see how far you can get before you ultimately die and start the whole thing over again with some form of meta progression. One of the things I was most impressed with this game was the way it executes the unfolding map and the different paths that you can take. And I haven't seen many games do this as well as Hades, and this is pretty close. It does a really good job of every time you go on a run, you'll talk to a new NPC or you'll gather some new information, and that will give you a hint about a new place you can go on your next run or a new quest you can do. And it makes each run feel brand new and exciting in a way, and really just slowly unfolds this entire map and all the different locations you can go to. Ultimately, though, I decided to put this game down after I reached the final boss for the first time, which, as many would know, that's kind of when a roguelite starts. But these games live and die by their gameplay and their combat. And for me, I just never felt like the combat in Absolum was as tight or responsive as I wanted. There were often times where I just felt like my character wouldn't do what I was trying to do, or I was trying to get to the right level of depth, because, you know, beat 'em ups, you can move into the background and up to the foreground of the screen, and it just felt like I couldn't get my character where I wanted a lot of the time. And yeah, maybe part of that is a skill problem, or I just need to get good, but unless you really love the gameplay, there's really no reason to continue in a roguelite. And for me, I just wasn't loving it. Honestly, though, I'm just proud of myself and my personal growth that I'm able to put a game down when I'm not enjoying it as much as I need to, instead of forcing myself to finish it. That said, I do not think this is a bad game, and if you do like beat 'em ups, then I think you should check this out. Last but certainly not least, I played Planet of Lana II, which is the sequel to Planet of Lana, which was a very competent 2D cinematic puzzle platformer. Think something like Inside or Limbo. And though I often think of both of those games as the best the genre has to offer, Planet of Lana did manage to hit a similar quality bar, albeit within a more vibrant and hopeful sci-fi world, which honestly works for me. Here in Planet of Lana 2, it's thankfully just more of the same, but better. The world continues to be just absolutely gorgeous, vibrant. The puzzles are simple but still satisfying to solve with your little companion Mui. And this game evolves the gameplay just a little bit by giving you more constant, precise control over Mui. When you use the right stick, you can tell him exactly where to go and position him for certain puzzles. It also introduces a mechanic of being able to take control of various creatures and or machines throughout the game that help you solve puzzles or different encounters. The music as well as the sound design are straight up phenomenal. There are just some seriously top tier orchestral tracks combined with really, really nice immersive sound design, whether you're underwater or in a rainforest or on the mountaintop. The sound is so good in this game. And then the story really takes that next step forward here in the sequel. It starts out as a basic quest to just gather some ingredients to save your sibling, but by the end it intertwines with a much larger narrative that perfectly connects into the first game, sets up a third game, and makes this kind of one of the best surprise middle games in a trilogy that I've ever seen. As for the runtime, this game took me about 6 to 8 hours to complete, and I just loved my time with this game. I was sad when it was over, and I'm so ready for what comes next. After completing this story, I found myself genuinely interested in this world, the world building, the plot, and it all just feels like equal parts Star Wars spin-off and Treasure Planet in the best of ways, and I'm so down for that. So there you have it. That was March. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you for listening to me talk about video games for 30 minutes. I continue to be absolutely shocked at how long it takes to make and edit these videos. It's it's so much, but hopefully I'll see you in April if I continue to do this.